Hello, this is Frank Duff, Chief Innovation Officer from Tidal Cyber. I'm here today to walk you through some of the new features that we've released in the past month since our launch of our community edition of the Tidal platform. So I want to walk you through some examples to get you familiar with some of the new functionality. And so let's begin with one that's core to Tidal Cyber and understanding how do I measure my threats against the defenses that I have. And so for this one, let me go in and show you how to add threats to your model first. And there's a few different ways of doing that, and I'll show you the different ways. But let's start here. Let's go into the groups page. By clicking that add button, I now get the list of all the groups that are within the Tidal platform. These are those groups as named by attack, but then we've also enriched that with additional information that we've pulled from various references to give it some more information that you can use to understand, does this group really matter to me, by looking at their suspected attribution or observed sectors, motivation countries, etc. And so what you can do is you can start filtering this information to understand, okay, do I need to care about, or do I care about specific countries or what have you? In this case, I'm going to say I know a specific threat that I care about. I care about APT29, somebody that's very commonly used in examples and associated with Russia in this case. Let me go and add that to my matrix. And so now, jumping back here, I can now see that APT29 has been added to the matrix. But I don't care about just one threat. I care about a few different threats. And so again, you could come into this hamburger menu and be able to pull up groups, and that would pull you to the same interface that you just saw. But one of the other ways that we do is very easily you can add this to your matrix just by going right to your search bar and clicking into APT28. And you could go and actually read up about that group and add them that way. But let's say that we added this. All right. But groups are only part of the threat model, right? We also care about software. And so let me, again, pick a representative piece of software that we can use for this example. And this one, let me say Conti. And so I've gone in and I've added Conti. And similarly, you could have done that through this adding the label button here or through the hamburger menu. But let's start just by doing this. And so what I've added here is 3 different groups to my, what would be an ad hoc threat model, right? The threats that I'm kind of exploring at this time. And you can even go one step further and you can actually do show only labeled techniques. And what this does is now truncates the attack matrix down to only the techniques or sub-techniques that are leveraged by the threats that are within that model. And you can see where there's overlap, right? You can understand that file and directory discovery, that's actually leveraged by all 3. Whereas there's a number of these that are only leveraged by APT29, at least as defined by attack. So we've defined our threats, but what about our defenses? That's an equally important part, especially when we talk about threat-informed defense. So again, you can add items in a few different ways, and I'll show you how you can do that. You could go in and you could pull in the products directly from there. But I'm going to go right into this product registry. And the product registry is something we launched at Black Hat. We're in the process of adding a number of additional big name vendors to this registry, some of which we've announced in that press release when we went live, including companies like CyberReason, Checkpoint, Zscaler, and SentinelOne. And so what we've got here, though, is a list of the ones that are currently within the registry. And you can scroll through, you can read about them, you could identify are there ones that you specifically care about. We've got some open source tools in terms of Olaf Hartong's Sysmon Modular, as well as Atomic Red Team's Invoke Atomic that you can pull in. And then other ones that have been provided to us directly from the vendors in the case of like an Attack IQ or Blue Vector, BreachBits, etc. So we've got all these products. Let me use Sysmon Modular as a stand-in for an EDR solution. And so right here, I can go in and I can actually add Sysmon Modular to my matrix by clicking this button. I could have zoomed in and looked at the actual capabilities that it has, but in this case right now, I've just added it to my matrix. And so again, coming back to the matrix, you can now start seeing where you've got defensive capabilities, that yellow, as opposed to the threats that you have in here. But I've got additional capabilities. I'm actually going to use the search bar because I find that to be one of the more easy ways of doing this. Let me go in and add Remediant's Secure One product, right? And so they provide privilege access management. They have a lot of mitigation capabilities that can address attack techniques for us. And then also, let me go in and add Trinity Cyber's TC edge as our network sensor. And so I can bring up the details here, read, is this the one that I actually wanted? You might have seen that there's a couple different Trinity Cyber products listed. And so let me go and add that to the matrix in this way. So now I've added 3 different defensive solutions to go along with 3 different threats that I have, and I can start understanding how my organization is defended. And I could do things like, all right, well, let me actually go in and change this APT28 group to also be blue so that I can kind of group these objects together visually at least. So I can make all my threats blue, and then I can go in and I can make all my defensive solutions yellow. But you can obviously change this to whatever you want, and in some cases it's really nice to have that differentiation in colors. But for just visualizations and making the point, let me go in here. And so you could see where you've got threats and where you've got defenses that can cover those threats by looking at this matrix, right? If it's blue, just blue, oh, I've got threats that use external remote services, but these 3 products don't have coverage, at least registered within in the Tidal registry. They don't have coverage of that technique. Whereas a lot of these actually have coverage, and maybe they don't even have a threat that uses this specific technique. And that's okay too, because chances are these aren't the only 3 threats that we're going to care about. But you can understand where there's that compare and contrast. And so now we've got this understanding of what my organization looks like for these 3 threats that I care about, these 3 defenses that I care about. And if I am so inclined, I can go and actually save that matrix so that I can refer to it later. And let me just call this my org for simplicity's sake. And I can go ahead and save that. And so now, if I want to ever come back to this, I can come back and view it under the My Stuff, right? So if I go to my work, I see this listed now as my matrix list. So I can bring this up so that if I leave the site, I can come back and bring it up and I can refresh it. And that way also, if for some reason the group definitions change for APT29 because the TAC just does a release, or Tidal provided more information and we got new information to say that a new technique had been referenced used by a group, right? You would now have that updated in this view. So you can continually track how your threats measure against your defenses in an easy visualization. I hope you found this useful, and I hope this helps you with your day-to-day work. Always appreciate feedback. Feel free to reach out and check out Tidal Cyber at app.tidalcyber.com. Thank you very much.